Hello and welcome to the Philippines. I've got some news updates. Some of you have heard some of this. It's actually evolving. They come out with some news and restrictions, more restrictions, requirements, and over the course of a number of days, even a week, those requirements, restrictions evolve, and we start learning about what they actually mean for us who live here. But first of all, before I get into that news, um, one thing I want to do much more of is talk about your stories. What would you do differently? I get a number of emails and comments about sharing your experiences, and I ask you now to, for those who would like to, share some of those. The Philippines, for many of you, is it's like so close yet so far away. You've got family here, you've got ties here, you've got property here, and you're stuck someplace else, some other country. And I just got an email from a fella. I think he went back to the UK when this all started. The UK government said, "Oh, rush back to the UK just as fast as you can, where it's safe here, and we can take care of you." And he went back, and now he's been separated from his family for over a year and a half. And in hindsight, of course, he wishes that he had never left, but who would have known? So what I hope to do in the coming maybe every week, every other week, probably would be more realistic. I already have a number of stories, people who I've met over the 6 years that I've been here, their experiences with relationships, their experiences with businesses, their experiences with the new culture, with money, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Of course, within reason. I'm not going to start a revolution here. And you can send that story, that information, to my email address. Amazing Philippines, do it now at gmail.com, and I will go over them and keep, of course, all your personal information private. But looking forward to reading those and sharing those for those of you who want to share your experiences, the good, the bad, and I have heard, many of you say, "Oh, don't buy property, don't do this, don't do this," and I've heard the good, the very good. You you are always hearing the bad stories. That's usually what comes out. And of course, there are those that are somewhere in between. There's life is a journey, and there's some good and bad to the journey. Not just here in the Philippines, but any place in the world. Now to the travel restrictions and the requirements. For the most part, for over a year and a half, it's been almost impossible for most people to travel to the Philippines. Tourist visas were canceled well over a year ago, and unless you fit one special category, you might be able to get in. If you were traveling with a wife, you might be able to get in. They just started loosening some travel restrictions, talking about allowing more people in. Cases of this new Delta variant that's scaring everybody around the world, and more governments are locking down, has just pretty much changed all of that here. Beginning of August, Cebu province, the Tri-Cities, what is Cebu City, Mandaue City, and Lapu City, pretty much are they're going back to a a more strict lockdown, and the actual details are being discussed at the present time. But this will last for until probably August 15th, possibly all the way through the end of August. So we don't know. The governments are asking the federal government, the IATF, the agency that's in charge of kind of setting up the guidelines, asking them not to drop us into the modified, enhanced quarantine uh, system where more businesses are shut down and more people are put out of work, more very, very hungry people, especially after this past year and a half plus. Let's hope that the rest of the world soon catches up with Singapore, which is going to start treating this virus like the normal flu or influenza and just treat it and deal with it and understand that it's going to continue to mutate just like so many flus over the course of decades. And here's a little op-ed if you want to read through that. A couple of the ministers who are responsible for the strategy there in Singapore. This is the reality on the ground here in the Philippines, breakdown by the regions and the restrictions, some until the 20th, some like here until the 31st of August, and here until August 1st to 15th. And some of this, anyway, canceled flights. Pretty much nobody's going to be traveling. Those few that were able to pretty much on hold. Anything coming into Cebu City and many of the other airports, I presume, as well. This is an evolving situation, and in the end, they say they've said, one article I read today, and it can change tomorrow, but it says they are not going to be, they are going to be setting up checkpoints, number 4 or 5 of them in the Cebu City metropolitan area, and they will not be checking for quarantine passes, something you used to have to carry with you. They were rare, hard to get, so it really restricted what you could do. If you work, you're supposed to carry a letter or something showing that you're authorized to work. If you're picking somebody up, if you are their transportation, you're supposed to have a copy of that letter, something like that, to prove that you are approved to be outside of your house. A few days ago, the liquor bans went back into effect, so all the bars pretty much shut down. Most of the people working in the bars, many of the restaurants, what the companies have been doing have been sharing the workload. So many of these people that I've talked to in different businesses around Cebu, Mandawi City, have been working 3 days a week for many months on end. Those who are lucky enough to have a job. And they are helping to support their families, their extended families. And so now those thousands of people are once again out of work. So let's hope that the Philippines and so many other countries take a little advice from Singapore and understand that you can manage this and the damage being done by these lockdowns. How many people are dying? How many people are not seeking? I'm familiar with a number of people who have died because they have not sought medical treatment because they're afraid of catching this virus in the hospitals. So what is your plan going forward? Of course, it's very difficult to plan when these governments continue to change their restrictions and regulations on a weekly and monthly basis. How can businesses plan ahead? How can economies go forward? How can travelers, people, families who have been separated for over a year and a half, how can they plan for the future? And I know a number of you that have purchased airline tickets for October, November, December of this year, expecting things to open up. And I have been optimistic for the first complete year of lockdown, thinking surely they've got to understand the damage they're doing and they need to open up the economy. Didn't happen. Year and a half later, going into tighter restrictions. So will it happen this year at all? Will they miss? Will all these different nations, will they miss the chance to get some economic recovery around the winter season, the travel season that is winter in much of the northern hemisphere? Um, it's starting to look doubtful. So I don't know. You plan ahead, you cover your bases, you take your risks. I think there are over 40 airlines that have gone bankrupt during this time, and many more that are in the process planning to go bankrupt here. So um, there are, I know in the U.S., read an article about even the like Hertz, a couple of rental car companies went bankrupt, and they dumped a lot of their cars. Now that demand is picking up, they're having difficulty attaining cars. They're going out and looking for used cars for the rental market because there aren't enough new cars on the market. This is all these lockdowns have disrupted supply chains. There's a big shortage of electronic components from around the world to manufacture much of the machinery and the automobiles. The airlines are having difficulty restaffing. They've laid off, furloughed so many pilots and airline workers that they are now having a difficult time uh, getting the manpower back in place. They're asking office personnel to go and work the airline desks, the ticket desks, those types of things, and that I suspect those kind of problems, logistical problems, will be with us for a couple of years at least around the world. I suspect that air travel will become more expensive as um, I just think that's going to happen, and there's the restrictions slowly come open, so those people with money will be able to travel. Um, Others will choose not to travel. Uh, they want nothing to do with restrictions and requirements, and the added costs and inconveniences. So they will just take care of themselves at their home bases, I guess. There are options. I know I've got a friend that went to Thailand, and he had expected to be able to come to the Philippines long before now, and now Thailand is going into more restrictions as well. So there are options. You all have to make those choices. You've got different budgets, different dreams. Uh, Maybe it's a case where you move your Filipino friends or family back to your home country. The Philippines is a relatively small country with a huge poor population, relatively poor, I think 80%, something like that. And it's not a rich nation. I don't know how they're surviving economically. The, the Philippines, I know they get loans and grants from different countries around the world. There's infrastructure projects going on that is helping to fuel a little bit of the economy. But once you start shutting everything down again, you start from scratch. And even the business community has come out and said, please, please, please don't do this again. We're just barely starting a recovery, and now you're going to lock everything down again. Anyway, looking forward to getting emails with about your experiences in the Philippines, and even traveling to other Southeast Asian countries, or looking into other countries, and your experience, your thoughts, and we'll be putting them up in the coming weeks, probably every other week. And anyway, good luck with all your plans, whatever they are, wherever you're at today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.